Remember searching SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm Fahima Mohammed, your host for tonight, as well as your relationship and couples coach. Having another episode today and really excited to have an amazing guest and also to have all of you lovely viewers who are streaming, whether you are watching live on Sky Channel 752, Facebook or Twitter. You are most welcome to join us tonight, and really love the fact that you always support the show and keep us on our toes by engaging and sending your messages and comments. And it's no different tonight. You are more than welcome to join in, even if it's to join us live in the conversation by calling into the studio on 01924231083. But please do ask the bill payer's permission, as standard network rates do apply. However, you can message us for free on our WhatsApp service, and you can also do that anonymously, and that number is 07585835150. I want to welcome all of you here from British Muslim TV, and for all of you to welcome my wonderful guest who is streaming all the way from the USA in Chicago. We have with us tonight Rabia and Baig. Assalamu alaikum, Rabia.
Walaikum assalam. How are you?
I'm so happy to have you with us tonight. You're an amazing content creator. I have watched you. You're quite inspiring, and you have influenced many young and, this generation of Muslim, especially people around, with your content. And I'm really happy to have you today, actually. We're going to be discussing a topic which is quite prevalent in our Muslim community. And I know there's a difference of society and mindset within the West and the East, but I also think there's a difference in society with the UK and the US. So it'll be very interesting to hear your thoughts. I know, you are going to be coming from, talking about, the experience that you see around you from your peers and your friends and society. And obviously you being such a huge influencer with an amazing following, mashallah, you probably get a lot of people messaging you and with, issues and things like that. So we're going to have a conversation tonight, everyone, about being 30 plus and still not married. There seems to be, even from my own experience and work and line of profession, that I do hear more and more men and women, but especially women, who are finding it very difficult to actually get married. And even with all the, the pressures, for it being half your deen and, being young, but at the same time, they keep pushing it, and it comes to a stage where you're 30 plus and you're not married and you've never been married. So we're going to discuss that. We're going to go right into it. But before we do, Rabia, can you tell me a little bit about yourself, what you do, and what is it like over there in Chicago?
Well, first of all, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. Thank you so much for inviting me to your show. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Rabia Baig, and I am a Muslim influencer / content creator. I started my journey from 2018, maybe 17, 18, that time. And since then, I've been spreading the message of Allah and inspiring Muslims out, all over the world, pretty much. So I started my journey with creating just regular posts on Instagram, just like text and everything. And then as the time went by, I went into the videos mode, and I started using whiteboard posts, which is pretty popular. I started using that, and then I thought it was like a creative way to spread the message across even more. And that's a lot of people like that style. So I went ahead and started with that journey, and then got a lot of followers and stuff. So that has been great. I still do it. And then I transitioned my content into Reels. I do a little bit of YouTube. I share a little bit of my life, personal life, a little bit vloggings on YouTube. So I do that. And it has been great. I've collabed with a few Muslim influencers. I For example, like on TikTok and Instagram, or collab as in like reels and posts. It has been amazing to know like creators all over social media. I just love it. So this
That's
is what I
amazing to
do.
hear.
And apart from yeah, yeah. So apart from that, I also do a little bit of oh, sorry. I also have a full-time job, which graphic designer. So that's something on the side, but mainly focusing on spreading the good message. And I like to inspire other people out there. So yeah,
That's
this is my
amazing.
journey.
I love that because we always talk about social media in a negative way, and it's good to see someone, especially from our Muslim community, who is female and wearing hijab and actually influencing and putting out content that is actually where it's in a good direction. It's in the right direction, because I've seen some of your content and a lot of it is Islamic based as well, which we don't get a lot of young or this generation actually doing that. So I really do appreciate that. So as much as we talk about it in a negative way, I think it depends who you're following and what is out there. And you are one of those people that I would say go and follow Rabia Baig on her Instagram page and TikTok, and she's amazing with her content. So again, we're going to talk about being 30 plus and not married yet. Do you find that exists a lot from what you see around your peers or community and society around you?
Yes. So I find that a lot of people nowadays, they are 30, single, and they actually prefer getting married late. Actually, it depends on the reason why. Sometimes they try to focus on their own life a lot more and then get into this whole phase of getting married, getting responsibilities and everything. And a lot of the reasons, another reason is why that they can't find the right person. And that is number one problem that I see. They talk to a lot of people and a lot of men, women out there, and like both men, women, they have a hard time finding the right kind of person. And the reason why I feel like is that they look for perfection, and that's a pretty big one because of the whole social media game. People tend to find even if they find like one flaw, they completely cancel that person out. And that's a lot of the reasons why people get married late. And then there's another step, which is involving families. And once the families are involved, issues might come up, like, something like that. So some of the reasons why people tend to get married, but I feel like a lot more people there are like few people who actually take their time to focus on themselves, career, job, and hobbies and stuff. But a lot more, it's about finding the right kind of person.
That is interesting, actually. And we have got a question already in the first few minutes of the show. So thank you so much for engaging with us. And it's very true what you said about there are various reasons. We can't just focus on one, because everyone has a different, reason. And we're going to go into the different reasons. However, we do have someone messaging saying salam alaikum to Fahima and Rabia. And she has, the person, whoever it is, has a few questions. Don't need to apologize for that. We totally understand, if you have more than one, or maybe just a few statements, which we can try and comment as best we can. So basically, she or he is saying that many women want a guy who says he has good intentions, but at the same time, how do we know that? And the other one is, how should a guy first meet a new woman? For example, without telling his intentions, by seeming to be too much. So if you were to approach a person and say, I want to get married, is that too forward at the very beginning? And how would you approach in a good manner? And also the third one is dating online. The options are, the Muslim dating app is quite common and you can meet people. But would you try other dating apps, for example? Because, there's many which are not Muslim related, but there are other Muslims on there. So again, these are just general questions which we are going to try and answer. So the first one is, how do you know what is the intention of a person when you meet somebody?
Yeah, there are, especially on these dating apps, like you meet people and first of all, their intention is to get married. Like if, for example, if there's somebody's approaching you with the right manner and not just getting to just to date and stuff, there are a lot of people out there who do that. We don't know the intention right away, of course, but as the time go by, as the more you talk to that person, the more you can realize what kind of intention this person has. Is he talking about the long-term goals? Is he talking about the future goals, or is he just interested in you meeting them and talking to them, and it's just like sort of like wasting time? So if you find out that if they're wasting your time, for example, like a month or 2 months and stuff, and not getting to the point, like not talking about the actual getting married and the life after getting married, then that's a big sign that the intention is not the right one.
I love that. No, that is very, very true. Actually, a lot of us don't realize and see the signs, and we get annoyed at some of the questions that somebody is asking, but then that's just really an indicator as to what their real intentions are. And but then again, we say that we need to speak to people, but I know a lot of women as well, especially when they are looking for a relationship and they will talk to somebody for weeks and months, and they can actually catch feelings without even having a proper relationship. How do you hold back that emotion of getting attached or having that expectation and then, letting it drop if it doesn't work out? What would you do and say, that would help somebody who is just trying to get to know somebody, but don't get too attached too quickly?
So I think the best way to approach it is to already make up your mind that somewhere down the road, it might not work out. Somewhere down the road, things will fall apart. So you have to be prepared way before talking to somebody like that. And a lot of the times when we get hurt, if somebody leaves, is because we build our homes in them. We expect that this person is going to make me happy. We already have like high hopes to that person. We decorate our house in them, and when the person leaves, our house or home go with them, and everything breaks apart. So the number one thing is to not have any sort of expectations right from the start, and you just talk to that person in a way that you're just getting to know a friend, know what this person likes, etc., 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 and not get attached to that person. The only one that technically you should be attached to is Allah and your family, and not other people are just, you should hold them on your hands and not put them in your heart right from the beginning. So you have to have a little bit of distance with them and not build your homes in them, not decorate your houses in them. So yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. I could not have put it in better words myself. And that was such a great introduction to the first part. And it's gone so quickly because we are coming up into a break. But just to remind you, thank you so much for sending your messages in. And if you have any further, please do send them through and I will be reading them out and we're going to try and answer them as best we can. It is a very important topic and we're going to go even more into it, but we're going to do so after the break. Please make sure that you do stay with us and inshallah we will be answering more questions, talking more deeply into this very important topic about being 30 plus and still single and never been married. And it's definitely an increase over time. But inshallah, again, make sure that you don't move, stay exactly where you are, and we will see you in a few short moments. Salam.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum and welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We're having a lovely conversation and ended the first part so quickly, but I'm so glad for you to enjoy the company with myself here with our lovely guest, Rabia and Baig, all the way from Chicago in the USA, who is talking about this real number of increasing individuals who are 30 plus and still not married, never married. We're not talking about people that have been married or in relationships before, but have never gone into marriage, and they are over this age. Now, Rabia, do you think that the problem stems from the individual, or do you think it stems from society? What's happening with maybe our world today that's making us concentrate more on being individual and taking our time? What is the difference between our parents' generation, for example, where they would get married early, they'd still study, they still have education? What is the difference now, do you think?
I feel like looking at the older generation, our parents, what used to happen is that their parents would set up an arranged marriage. And usually at that time, women did not, stand up for themselves. And that's how there is a big difference in the society, like now versus then. Back then, they didn't stand up for themselves, and they would just, accept whatever their parents have chosen, even though they do not like the person that they're with, and then they will have like so many problems going ahead in their life, in their marriage life. And it used to happen. And same thing with divorces. Like they did not stand up for themselves, even for the divorces that their parents have set up as a marriage. So now what is the difference is that now people, especially women, they stand up for themselves and they know what's right, what do they want, what kind of person they want to be with. And that's how I feel like it's the biggest difference. 80% of the time it is societal pressure, I believe, and 20% is within yourself. So once the society starts to say that, oh my God, you're not married, you're not this, you're not that, you're incomplete, etc., you tend to feel it, and then like all sorts of emotions run and all of that. So I believe 80% is the fault of the society that pressures you into it, and then 20% it's right after you hearing those thoughts. And then your mind goes like, wow, I'm incomplete. I am not this. I am not that. And others, honestly, they don't always know what's good for you. And you know yourself what you want. And that is the biggest difference, I believe. So I believe that standing up is number one.
I really do agree with you. I think that's really interesting what you said. And I think that women have changed over time, and they've become more aware of, their choices, and they have got choices more, and they're not just listening. But do you not think that maybe that sometimes is a problem? Some people may argue that women are now too picky. Women are now looking too much, because now, before, even mothers will say, well, we just dealt with it. We just kept with that. We just, this is how people are. And we made our marriages work because we were in it and we stuck with it. But now you guys have choices and you want to be doing this, that, and the other. Like, I've heard this a lot. So, it is definitely a change with society. And I hear a lot of people saying that it's because that women's roles have changed. And as you mentioned, it's more about them not accepting. But that's what people don't understand. It's because we have learned to understand our rights. We've learned to accept certain things in society, which is actually fair and just. So it's not that we are too picky, or, women are becoming, more open with the way in which they actually, view life. They're actually doing it the correct way, whereas before it was probably a little bit more unfair. So that's how I see it. But you also touched on something which was really important, I think, when you come to a certain point where you're quite happy to be single, and, you're young, you're working, you're independent, or you're studying. But then you get to that age of 30 and above, and, you've got that pressure, and people do look at you differently. Now, there's a lot of things that I hear generally where women are put down because they're not married over 30, especially. And they looked upon as someone who is probably not good enough to be chosen to be married, or too picky, or, they are just, in society where they are, inferior because they don't have a husband. And even other women feel superior because they have a husband. So how would you sort of guide and advise someone who is over 30 and still never married? What do they need to do to keep that momentum going so that they can still have that mental well-being, which is healthy? So when they do come across somebody, it's not like, oh, it's out of pity, or they themselves are not feeling that they are vulnerable, or they are, having to just choose someone, because a lot of people choose people very quickly as well after a certain age, because they think, oh, I don't want to miss the boat because I'm at this age. How would you guide someone who is over 30 and, to keep them in that way where they are actually feeling on the top level?
Yeah, it's a very common nowadays in the society. The first thing that is super helpful to know is that men do not provide for you, Allah does. Whether it's like financially, spiritually, physically, all of these strengths, it comes from Allah, and nobody else out there in the world can provide for you as well as Allah would. So this is number one. You have to keep Allah your priority and not put anybody else above him, because Allah, it's his job to provide for you, not somebody else out there in the world. So, and that is like the number one key to believing in yourself. And also building your own life helps a lot, rather than you depending on other people out there. And building as in like you have your own career, you have your own hobbies, you have your own lifestyle, you have a set of support system, friends, family that you can rely upon, instead of just thinking that marriage is the only solution to life. If you prioritize marriage a lot more than other things out there in the world, you'll be so miserable out there. So it's all about having the right mindset and not giving so much importance to this topic. I know the society does, but we have to disconnect and put some sort of like a boundary between the society and us, so that we don't believe whatever they are saying. So we have to keep a separate mindset, and know that Allah is the priority and nothing else. And you're not missing the boat. You're not being late. Everybody has their own timing. It may be that you had to achieve something big before you get into this whole responsibility. It may be that you had to meet somebody out there, and something else might have to happen before you could meet that person. There's a lot of there's a lot of reasons why people marry late, and they don't get to meet the right person right away. It takes time. It's not that you have to be married right as soon as you hit 25, as soon as you hit 27. No, in Islam, the minimum requirement is given, but there's no maximum requirement of you getting married. So there's no age limit to it. The only age limit is what society puts upon you, and that's because they put a pressure because of kids, that by the certain age you won't be able to have kids. And is everything about kids? Yes, according to society. But you have to know what's important to you, not them. And that's how you build your way up into build your own life, build your own mindset. And definitely you're not being delayed. I've seen people get married at 40 and they're happy. And it's not that the more the time passes, the more you will be unhappy with that person, and the more you will find the wrong kind of person. It's not that, it doesn't happen this way. So I've seen people married 50, 40, and they're happy. So it's not like the earlier you get married, the better person you're going to find.
Oh, that's so true. I've definitely seen that myself, where, marriages take place, plus, 35, and, all of a sudden, whether they, have 2-3 kids in the next, 3-4 years, and they've just caught up to even all the rest of the people that were behind them. So, and they're living happily, and it's absolutely fine. I think it is true. It's the fear of what people put, on you and what they say in society. But you're absolutely correct. And I think, anyone that's out there that is over 30 and single, to understand that, there is a plan for you, and there's definitely a time for you. Do you think it's more difficult for women than men to be single past 30?
Yes, definitely. First of all, there's a lot more ratio from women to men. There are a lot more women nowadays versus men, so it's actually a lot harder to find the match. So I definitely feel that it's definitely harder, and as the time going by, it's actually getting harder and harder, especially because of social media, the perfection again. We have a lot of expectations, a lot of pressure, a lot of a pressure, even pressure to find the right kind of person. It's not like just get married and stuff. The guy has to be making like 100K and have to have like a, I don't know, like a huge house before they get married. So there's a lot of pressure that comes even from the families. Yeah, definitely harder.
Yeah, that's so true. I think that you raised something even more important, which I'm going to go into, but it will be after the break because we are coming to another one soon. But definitely, there is pressure from both sides, whether it's male or female. I have heard quite a lot of men even now even complaining that women are just too high expectation, even though, you know, as you mentioned before, that men and women are different in their roles and women are stepping up. But now with that, it's like, you know, a lot of the times men are quite happy to marry, you know, down, for example. They don't care about the status of a woman, but a woman always cares about the status of a man. So we're going to talk about that after the break. And I think it's a really interesting one. Make sure you stay with us because I think that we're going to go into a lot more hot topics around this issue. So inshallah, you know, stay with us and we'll be talking more to Rabia. And do send in your questions and queries and we will answer them very, very shortly. Take care and we will see you in a few minutes. Assalamu alaikum.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. I'm really loving the conversation and it's so resonating with so many of my clients and so many of, you know, people that call up into the studio and, you know, sending emails and messages because it is definitely something that is increasing where there's a lot of single people 30 and above who have never been married and the reasons are endless. And the excuses are even more endless. So, Rabia, I was talking to you quickly on the break, and even before that, I mentioned that as much as we say, you know, concentrate on yourself, work on yourself, and women nowadays, they've got, you know, high career and professions and positions and education. And I do hear a lot of the times women complaining that men are not on par with them, let alone above them. And like I said before, women want to marry above. And men may not, you know, mind if the woman is, you know, of same sort of level in status or education and things like that. And they don't mind them being lower. But with women, it's different. And now with women increasing in their career, in their status, financially even, do you find that men are lagging? Do they need to like step up a little bit? Or is that not even a problem that we are, you know, raising? Or, you know, for most women, they feel that, you know, they're not meeting their match and men are not necessarily, you know, on equal ground, even with a lot of women nowadays. Do you feel that's, you know, what you've seen around yourself?
Yes, definitely. I've seen it around, and I've heard like a few reasons that women usually they want the men to step up in just so they can, because you know how women, the nature of women is like they spend a lot in shopping and shoes and clothes and all of this. So they try to find a man who is like financially stable and actually makes more than them. And just so they can completely, you know, go all out on shopping and try to show like other people out there that, oh my God, my husband makes this much and all of that, this and that. So that is a thing that I see a lot of, like especially in our community, that women tend to look at that. Another reason could be that they want the men to have some sort of like responsibility. So if the man is, let's say, making lower than them or have like a lesser of a position than them, then to them subconsciously it creates a persona that the man is not quite responsible enough that it won't be able to like match up to her level. So that is a lot of the times. It happens all subconsciously that we personally, it's like a human nature or something that we want another person that we are spending our whole life with, that they are their match, our level. So I believe these two reasons I've seen in my personal, like my friends around and all of that. So.
No, definitely. I do feel, but do you think that there are men out there? I mean, especially 30, do you think it's enough for them to say, even at that age, they should be able to support family, have a house, have a car? Because a lot of women, you know, are quite financially stable and they've got really high positions. And, you know, do men need to step up though? Do you not think that they do need to step up?
Well, personally, I feel like if as long as the man is making an effort to like have his own career, stepping up in that career, which is fine on his personal level, but it's not a competition in my opinion. It's never a competition that that you have to be have to be above the women. I don't think that is a competition or anything like that. Yeah, but if they want to step up in their own for themselves, then definitely.
That is so true. But unfortunately, you are very one of very few women that think like that, because I know I talk to so many people and they do have an issue with this. And I want to, you know, sort of say that out there because I like to play devil's advocate. And I do see a lot of women out there that say, you know, you don't even have a degree, so you're not even going to talk to me. This is how it is. And I've heard that personally. So I'm raising these kind of issues because I want people to check themselves and double think, because is that really going to make your marriage successful because you have a degree? Yes, maybe you might come from the same mindset. And, you know, we hear doctors need to marry doctors, lawyers need to marry lawyers because, you know, at the end of the day, they can understand each other. But I personally know when marriage breaks down, it's got nothing to do with that. To a certain extent, you have to have, you know, a growth mindset. I think that's where we've got to look at it more from psychology than just the materialistic way. And I think if you look at it in that way, and obviously, like you mentioned before, considering our deen more than our culture, and it's not just also the responsibility of the individuals that are getting married. I think it's really also important that parents who are looking for potential spouses for their adult children also lower their sort of expectation, because they want someone who is probably coming out of university, wanting to get married and have a bank balance that they've worked for maybe 20 years to have it straight away, because now that daughter is expecting it. So we need to be real about these kind of issues. And I think, you know, what you've said is very, very true. And even though I might put, you know, questions out there, you know, these are not just my opinions. Unfortunately, it's something that, you know, I have to put out there because we want to make sure that we get a real huge perspective of what's happening in our Muslim community. Why is there so many 30 plus that are not married? And even the fact that we're questioning it, isn't that a problem? Or should it be not even a question? You know, because at the end of the day, if we're questioning it, we're actually making it an issue. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, again, I mean, they are putting a pressure upon us. They're making an issue out of it because of society. For example, like your relatives, right? Your mom, your dads, your uncles and aunts, their kids and our kids. So it's sort of like a competition, in my opinion, that they put a lot of pressure upon us. So if like your cousin is getting married at the age of like 25, you have to be married by the age of 25. So that is why there's a lot of pressure with kids, a lot of pressure with finding the right kind of person, like who makes $1 million. So definitely, I agree with you.
We have another question, Rabia, and it says, Salam to Fahima and Rabia. Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much for your question as well. Basically asking, obviously, if you're 30 and not married, it's okay. And the feeling of wanting love is normal. But then how long do you get to know somebody, like, you know, and get to know them? Because the reason why people also don't get married and they delay it, because at the end of the day, I've heard a lot of people getting hurt. They're quite scared and they're traumatized even without being in a relationship. There's so many people that people are talking to and with false promises and with, expectations that, were told and not met, for example. So how long, 1 month, few months, a year, how long does it take? I mean, I don't know with me personally when it comes to timing that there is such a thing, but what's your thoughts on that when it comes to really getting to know somebody? Because I think a lot of people hold back on marriages because they are afraid of what's out there, or they've had some really bad experiences. So how would you go around that?
I think time is not an issue. It's more of an understanding how much you understand that person, whether it takes a month, whether it takes 3 months. Sometimes what happens, you don't even get to know the real person, even if you spend like 5 years with them. So I don't think timing is an issue, but most importantly, what you have to look at is the understanding, how compatible you are with that person, how that person is willing to do things for you, what kind of effort that person puts in within this relationship or talking phase or whatever. So I believe that timing is not really the case here.
Absolutely, I agree with you. Dealing with a lot of cases as well. It's if you go from a psychological point of view, you can actually get to know that person very quickly if you ask the right questions, if you have the right things set. And, at the end of the day, if you talk to professionals out there that do give this, and there's a lot of Muslim coaches out there, but I know most people are quite reluctant to see, but they give you these tools that you can actually sort of allow to know yourself and be aware, and also be aware of the other person. So definitely when people say, we don't need to know about marriage, it's only because they're looking at it from a very surface level. But if you really want to know somebody and understand, what are their personality traits? What are their characteristics? Do they have these core beliefs and values that match yours, so that even with change over time, you can actually address it? Because we're not brought up in this way. We're not taught in that way. Marriage is just to, have children, like you said, but it's so much more. And that's why there's such a breakdown now, because, that's not just the only reason that people want to get married, and they're tolerating a lot more, or they're not tolerating because it's not being done correctly in the first place. Now, when it comes to basically getting married, it's so much pressure, not just from society, but even religion, that it's half your deen, right? So how do we get past that to a certain extent when you are single, over 30, and, you're thinking, well, I'm not complete because I'm not married when it comes to my Islamic, obligation?
First of all, I don't think Islam puts a pressure upon anybody because it's Prophet Muhammad said there's no compulsion in religion, whether it's related to prayers, marriage, fasting, any other stuff. There is no pressure whatsoever in Islam. Yes, people say that getting married is half your deen and etc. Which I don't know. What are your thoughts on this, Fahima?
I agree with you to an extent as well. I do feel that when we are learning about Islam, at the end of the day, it is definitely something that we do need to consider. And obviously, it's also the guidance of, Muslims, and to actually also have early marriages for many reasons. And I have spoken about this before. But I do think that we just don't have enough, I think, to this day and age, the support to understand ourselves, and for parents, or, whether it's leaders or community leaders, to actually understand how society has changed in order to talk about this even in religious terms, so that we can actually say, well, even though society has changed, even though women have changed, let's bring it back to what it is. And I think a lot of us are still very cultural based and very nationalistic. And I don't think it's the religion that's the problem. I think it's the culture that's the problem. And that's what the pressure is. And I think it's all about that. And what about, the stigma of, being single? How do you get away from the stigma of being single and being seen as someone who is not married in society? You go into weddings and the first thing is like, you're not married yet. Oh, really? You're still not married yet? Like as if there's something wrong with you. What do you do when this is what is constantly at you? As much as you can be so independent, you try to build your mindset. And when you go out into even society in the Western world, they're much more accepting. But in our Muslim communities, unfortunately, I'm going to call you out on that, it is definitely more pressure, especially for women, like as if to say, I don't care if you're a doctor, I don't care if you're doing so well, but at the same time, you're not married. So you really, that's all they want to talk about, is that you're not married, forget all the other accomplishments that you have had. So what do you do then? How would you advise some of these, the elders and the community leaders to actually, have a bit of empathy at the end of the day, have a bit of compassion? How would you sort of, see that? Because I think the pressure is not just society, it's our own family members.
Yes, definitely. It starts from family and then it goes out into the world, society. So first of all, you have to deal with your family and you have to really, really tell them that, yes, I am trying to find somebody, but I want to later in life, but right now I want to focus on myself, or whatever your reason is. I would say just be honest with your family. First of all, you don't have to make excuses here and there. Just make sure that you are open to them and make sure you have skills to make them understand your situation and that you want to focus on yourself, and then later you will go about getting married and all of that. Or especially like a lot of the times what happens is that when they present you like people, your potential spouses, they present to you and then you don't like them and then they put extra pressure upon you. Like, hey, this is a good guy. Why did you say no? So you have to go through this whole cycle of like really making sure that the family understands why you are rejecting somebody or why you're not going with that guy and girl, and that you prefer to wait instead of just rushing into this whole thing. You prefer to wait. You have to really make sure that they understand. And society out there, it's always going to happen, regardless if you're like 30, 40, 50. Every time you go there, somebody's going to ask you like, so when are you going to get married? And what I do personally is that I just tell them that, okay, I'm just focusing on myself right now. I'm busy with my content creation and stuff like that. And I want to inspire the world instead of,
Absolutely.
That's my priority.
Well, Rabia, you've given us so much and I've got so many questions for you, but you know what, we're going to discuss this more when we come to a very short break. And inshallah, make sure that you do stay with us because I'm really, really enjoying this conversation, but we will see you very soon. Take care.
With 3 million members searching, SingleMuslim.com proudly sponsors Single Muslim Live.
Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to Single Muslim Live here on British Muslim TV, sponsored by SingleMuslim.com. We are in the final part of the episode. Thank you so much for being with us so far, sending in your questions and engaging. Really, really appreciate it. And also having Rabia with us tonight to discuss such an important topic about being 30 plus and not yet married. Now, I know we had a question in the break, which I want to take because I think it's not fair to ask these questions to just individuals. When you're asking the question of what is your ideal partner, I think it's such a one-to-one conversation about who you are actually dealing with. Because I think we generalize too much. And I think when we generalize, we can actually put ourselves in a box which does not fit us. That's why it's so important to know yourself very well so that when you are speaking to somebody, you will understand if they do match you or not. There's no such thing as an ideal partner. There is just someone who is for you. Right? And you will know that when you have certain things in place. And I always come from a psychological point of view that when you understand your core values and your beliefs and things like that, and when you have certain sort of processes set in place, then that question is not even something that you would want to ask, because it's a feeling and there's so much more around it. So I hope whoever's asked that question, you actually understand this, that it is a case by case sort of question and an answer and a study as well. So thank you so much for sending in your questions. Really, really do appreciate it. I think it's so important that, you know, you engage with us and we actually have this kind of, you know, conversations where we are speaking to you, even if it's not live, you know, in the studio, but we are actually taking your messages and we're trying to address it as best we can. Now, Rabia, when it, you know, we were talking about before the break, when it comes to dealing with yourself and saying you're working on yourself, do you not think, though, that sometimes people might get annoyed, like parents, to say, well, it's not just about dealing with yourself. Part of being with, you know, dealing with yourself is actually accepting, you know, a person. I can hear parents, you know, literally when you were speaking and saying that, it's like, why are you know, saying no to that person? Why you keep waiting? Because the more you wait, the longer it is. Do you think that we are maybe sometimes, there could be the other end where we are still waiting for someone that we feel subconsciously is going to fulfill everything, and because we don't feel it in the first instance, we keep putting it off, and then we put it off for so long we just don't find it? Because I have heard of even these things, and like, oh, I wish I actually did choose that person that came to me before. I wish I didn't wait, because, you know, there isn't someone better coming along. So we have to look at it from both perspectives too. It's not just society to blame, it's not just parents to blame. I think even nowadays a lot of people think that, you know, there is someone better that's going to come around, and they don't actually put themselves out there to actually give it a chance and actually say, you know what, Bismillah, you know, this came to me and I'm going to give it a go. Because like you said, in Islam, just like there's no sort of like age limit as to where to get married, it's the same thing with choosing somebody. You're never going to really fully know them until you actually put yourself in it. Take that leap of faith. And I'm not saying to do it completely blindly. Obviously, you do your due diligence. But at the same time, I think we're holding back a bit too much out of fear or the unknown. What's your thoughts on that?
Yes, definitely. First of all, it's a lot of, we tend to put a lot of pressure upon ourselves as well, thinking that the person has to be like way perfect, and then if I don't find the person with like a few flaws, then no, we'll reject this, and then somebody else better will come up and all of that. Which technically, like you said, that sometimes it does not happen. You keep on looking and looking and looking, and then you end up facing like a lot of these people who have a lot of flaws. So the ideal thing to think about is that how comfortable are you with their flaws? Like, can you deal with their flaws in the long run, or can you not take their flaws at all? So it's, yes, we want somebody perfect, but we also have to think about the flaws. We want like good things, but also try to accept the flaws, try to think that what can I deal with it? Like, everybody has flaws, first of all, like nobody's perfect. So you just have to make sure that what are you okay with? Like, if this person talks a lot, are you okay with that in the long run? Then yes, that there might be a chance to, like, you know, you can give that person a chance. So something like this, even if you find like a few flaws, don't just reject that person altogether. Try to see if you can deal with that and if you can live with them, with their flaws. So I think that's number one. And then, and it's also okay to continue looking for better. It's not that you won't be able to find anybody, but it's also okay to continue to do that at the same time. It really depends on your preferences. It really depends on what you're okay with, you're not okay with. But yeah, in my opinion, that don't just completely shut off the person who has a little bit of flaws. Also, at the same time, just keep on looking for the right person.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is quite difficult to navigate that nowadays. And it is definitely, you know, a game to a certain extent as to how to play it right, where you've got that balance, where you are giving people the right amount of chances. And at the same time, I think to add to what you said is when you find someone not perfect, in your eyes, just remember they're looking at you in the same way. And, you know, they also are accepting. And we all, like you said, have some sort of shortcomings. So as much as you're judging somebody else, try and judge yourself first as to what you're bringing to the table, and not as in only the good things, but also what are the bad things that you're bringing that somebody else has to deal with. So if you know yourself very well, knowing that they have to deal with certain shortcomings from yourself, then you are also willing to do the same for the other person. And I think overall, when you are in that point where you don't have that right sort of way of thinking, how do I make a choice? Honestly, dua, tawakkul, and, you know, reading and praying and having all of that around you really does make a difference to lead you in the direction. Because again, you might think when you're young, there's so many choices, they're going to keep coming, but up to a certain point, they don't come, and it has stopped. And I've spoken to a lot of people now that, you know, when they were in their mid-20s, early 20s, they had so many people they kept rejecting. And now they're over 30. First of all, you don't get that many people coming to you. And secondly, you know, at the end of the day, then you feel that you are just going to choose somebody which, you know, is like kind of the left, you know, from where you had many choices, you've only got a few choices. And it may not be where you're going to be choosing in the right way, because it's going to be out of desperation. And we don't want to get to that point. Do you also think that after a certain point that men as well don't want to marry, you know, women that are over 30? Do you not think that that's the other thing, that we do have that problem in our communities, regardless if they've never been married before? And even however old they are, it doesn't matter, but they always want to choose somebody who, and I think women need to also remember that, as much as it may not be fair, but if that's how it is out there, then they also have to consider that men actually want to marry younger, much younger women, even if it's their second time round or their first time round and they're much older, they can get away with the age. But women, I think, unfortunately, in society, any society, it is a lot harder. So do you not think that we need to consider that as well?
Yes, definitely. And I have no clue why it happens. Why do they prefer like younger women? I don't know. I think it might be because of the beauty and the looks and all of that, because men are pretty, you know, they're very pretty picky about the looks. Not as much money or degree or what kind of status you have, but more like a beauty and etc. So I think this is one of the reasons why they choose to marry like a younger women, whether they're like 50 years old. But
exactly.
Yeah. I think it has to be.
Yeah, definitely. Absolutely. But you're so true and, you know, incorrect in saying that, you know, women may worry about the status and the profession and men worry about the looks. And, you know, that's how it works. But you know what? So far in this conversation, we've gone through so many reasons. We've given so many ideas and whatever it may be. But we have come to the end of the show. I just want you to, you know, in like less than 30 seconds, tell me some final words before we end. And also, how can people reach you to watch more of your content, Rabia?
Sure. So basically, yes, we are 30, we're single, we need to make sure that we live a fulfilled and content life. So having the own personal identity is the number one key. If you're not confident in yourself, if you don't have your own life, if you are not focusing on yourself, your career, your health, your pretty much your life, then you're going to have a hard time dealing with the societal pressure. So being content with yourself, staying healthy mentally and physically is like the number one thing that we should focus on. And that's how, when you focus on yourself, that's when you'll be able to find the right kind of person. That's what you will attract as well. If you are not happy within yourself, chances are you're going to end up somewhere that you're not happy in the long run. Yes.
Absolutely. So wonderful.
Having
definitely. Unfortunately, we have come towards the end of the show and you've given us so much insights, Rabia. Thank you so much for being with us. Please do follow Rabia and inshallah we will see you next week. Take care. Assalamu alaikum.